Memorial Designer is built on CorelDRAW. First and foremost, this is because it is a vector-based program. What that means is everything is created with line segments. Beginning with the end in mind, we want to be able to cut this file when we're finished. Now, if I open up a bitmap program, I can zoom in here and show you that everything in a bitmap program is based on pixels, these little squares. Pixels are not cuttable, so you do not want to use a bitmap program, or you're going to have to redraw everything in a vector program later. Now, even though it's vector-based, we can apply bitmap fills. So if I fill this with some granite and zoom in here, you will see that there are pixels in this fill. However, in the back end, it is still a vector-based program. Memorial Designer supports many file formats, both for import and export, including Adobe Illustrator, AutoCAD, and HPGL plotter files. You should not have any problem importing your files from other software. Corel does updates annually. In March, they usually have their major update, and then in June and September, they'll release patches and improvements. Memorial Designer will do their annual update after the September update from Corel. Memorial Designer supports both OpenType and TrueType fonts, which means any font you have installed on Windows should be available to use in your designs. However, there are some caveats here I'd like to briefly go over. This font is Arial, which comes with Windows. You can see I have it set to 1 inch, but you can tell by these 1-inch boxes that it's not truly 1 inch tall. That's because Windows includes a certain amount of space in their height. Now, Memorial Designer has a simple tool for this called the Monument Text Docker. I have this set to 1 inch. I simply click apply, and that will size it to a true height of 1 inch, even though up here it says it's a little bit taller. Our monument fonts are specifically designed so that 1 inch is truly 1 inch. However, not all of them have lowercase. So in the case of this, if I toggle my upper and lower, nothing happens. The Monument Lettering Center took a different approach with their fonts. They said if there are no lowercase letters, let's do small uppercase version. So you have that option with their fonts. With some of the fonts, you will see these rectangles as you type. That just means you're typing lowercase, and there's no option for this, so you just need to convert it all to uppercase. Now let's look at something that just might blow your mind about working with fonts in Memorial Designer. I'm not quite sure the industry's ready for it, but here we go. This font has a bold and underlined version, but it also has this here, which is called variable fonts. With variable fonts, you have granular control over them. So if I want a more condensed version of this font, I just slide this to the left. We can also adjust the weight, so there's no longer just one bold version. There are literally thousands of them. Is your mind blown? But wait, it gets even better. Let's look at these Hebrew letters here. I have 2 copies so we can compare to the original one. Watch this blue letter tzadi as I adjust the weight. Notice how these areas here have gotten thicker, but this part of the letter has not. Variable fonts can be created with separate pieces that each have different scaling properties. Can your old design software do that? When it comes to file operations, it's fairly standard as far as Windows goes. You can open designs or import designs into an existing one. There is the menu here. You also have buttons over here that do the same thing. You can also export, again, as a major file formats, you can export as well. If you're going to do a PDF, they actually call it publishing. Just keep in mind when it comes to PDFs, let me zoom out here, it's only going to publish what's inside of the page border here. So if I were to publish that, what that's actually going to look like is this cut off on the sides. So we have a button for that PDF, which actually resizes it and makes everything fit, and then it works just fine. When it comes to saving, you also want to know that you can save as previous versions and actually set the default so that you say you're using different versions of Corel amongst different computers. You'll want to be in the same version, and you can save it as the default. I have mine set to 20. When it comes to different ways to view what you're working on, we have a few options. Under the view menu here, you can see I'm set at enhanced. One of the common ones we use is wireframe, where it strips out all the colors. You can see the lines, you can see how things overlap and tell exactly what's going on in the back end. We have a toggle for that up here in the top, which will go back and forth. The other one we have is this full screen preview one. You click on this and it will take away all of Corel, and you will just be able to see just the design without the workspace, which is great when you're designing with the family. You also have a pan tool. The easiest way is typically if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, is to click and hold, and then you can click and drag any way you want to go. Alternatively, you can come under the magnifying glass, click the pan tool, or press H on the keyboard, and that will also give you access to that tool. Now, something as easy as printing can seem quite daunting in CorelDRAW because there are so many different options. So let me show you some tricks here to make it a little faster. If you don't have this turned on already, I would recommend you turn on the side preview window so you can see exactly what's going to be on your page. Now you can tell our design's not going to fit on the page, so I'm going to come over here to Layout and then Fit to Page, and that will fit everything on our paper. From here I want to double check our orientation is set right. I could switch to Portrait if my printer was set to that. You can access your printer settings here with the gear icon. Also set your paper trays if you need to. Just want to make sure I'm going to print the pages that I want, in this case just the current page. And from here I can go ahead and print. The orientation and paper size can be set in the document itself using these buttons here. You can set the paper size over here in this drop down. All this can be done a lot faster if you use the quick print button here on the top toolbar. What that does is actually converts everything to a bitmap, shrinks it down, fits it to the page, and then comes out, which helps with printer banding with some printers. It can also speed up the printing itself. This manual process I just showed you took me about 45 seconds start to finish, but quick print took 15, so about a third of the time. There is a full screen print preview, but the only time I use that is if I want to print something life size. Let me reset this real quick. If I wanted to print just this car life size, I would come here to print preview, and then from here I could click and drag and get the car on my page, and then when I print it would be actually life size. If you're working with some software where you use grid lines and coordinates, let me show you how those work. You see I've got a 0, 0 coordinate here in the center of my die down to the joint. To reset that, you just click and drag where the rulers meet. Let's say I want to set it here to the left side of my die. Snap it to that corner, and now your ruler is set 0 and 0 here. If you can't see your ruler or want to see grid lines, just come up to the View menu. Here you've got rulers and guidelines if you want to be able to see those. If you want to see the grid, click on Document Grid here. It will show you your grid lines lined up to your rulers. To change any of these settings, just double click on a ruler. That will open up the settings here. You can see you can change if you want to do metric. You could go here. Your grid line settings are here to set out how many are per inch. While I'm here, I'm going to show you what the nudge. So the nudge is when you select an item and hit an arrow key on your keyboard. By default, it's a 1/4 inch. I like to set mine at an 1/8 as an option. And I set my super nudge to 8 times that and micro nudge to 1/8 of that. So I'm going to click OK, and let me show you why. If I group here my panel together, and let's say I wanted to specify that this is a certain distance from the joint, knowing that if I hold down Shift and hit my arrow key once, that's going to go up 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. I know now that I've got 3 inches from here to here. If you want to use a guideline, just click and drag on the ruler, bring it down. You can do both horizontal and vertical. If you want to rotate it, just click on it again, and you have these rotation handles here, and then you can spin it around. If you want to plug in a certain degree, you can type in, 45-degree angle. You could do that here. Keep in mind, all of these settings are per document, so just because I change my nudge setting here to an 1/8 does not mean if I come back to this one that this one is still at a 1/4. So if you want to set your defaults, set them how you want, and then come up here to Tools, say Save Settings as Defaults. Make sure your guidelines, grid, rulers, all these are checked, and then you can save that so that your defaults are set moving forward for each new document. Snap settings are here on the top toolbar, so you can set what you snap to. We would recommend guidelines and objects, and if you're using the grid, do the document grid as well. If you want to toggle the snap on and off, just simply press this button here, and then it will stop snapping. And just one quick tip when it comes to snapping. Let me move this vase out here. If I want to snap this vase to the top of the base, you'll notice nothing is happening here. And this is because I grabbed the vase in the center. So snap only works where your cursor is. So if I move my cursor down, you see right there, then it snaps. So if I want to snap this vase to the top of the base, I need to grab it at the very bottom. If I hover over, it'll say edge. At that point I want to grab it, and then I can snap it right to the top of that base. All right, let's talk about fills and outlines. Each object can have both a fill color and an outline color. To change the color of the fill, simply select the object and click on the color of choice. If you wanted to use these granite colors over here, you need to select which finish you want first. So let's say polished, and then click on the granite color, and it will finish a polished red granite. To change the outline, instead of left clicking on a color, you would simply right click. So if I wanted to change this to black, I'm going to right click, and then if I wanted to frost this, I would click on frost, and then click on my granite, and there I have a frosted red granite on the inside. You can change the thickness of the outline by coming down here and clicking on the outline tool, open the properties window, and adjust it here. So I want a little bit thicker. The problem with doing it this way is this is merely visual. You can see if I come back here, there is only one line here. There are not two like a traditional frosted outline how there would be. In order to do that, you would want to get rid of your outline and use the frosted outline tool here, which should actually create an outline around your letter that would be ready to blast. Now the tricky part comes in when we have a font like this, shadow font, because if I just click on the fill color that fills the black part, which you would think is the outline, but it's not, because if I right click and give it an outline, you see there's a red outline around each individual piece. Definitely not what I want. So let me undo and go back. So to fill this one, you use what's called the Smart Fill tool. It's under here under Interactive. And then you simply click on the middle of each letter, and it will create an object inside of each letter that we can now frost. Now what I like to do is to keep these together. I will select everything. I will hold down Shift, deselect the shadow part, and then I will group together this fill part. And so now we have basically a separate object down here that we can fill with granite colors like this to make a frosted outline letter. If we want to do a polish outline, we would just change that to polish, rerun our script, and then we have a polish outline letter. When we get to the plot page, we would simply just delete this part so we do not double cut. And again, we have all the lines necessary to go ahead and plot our design. All right, now we're going to talk about copy, paste, and duplicate. You can select an object, hit Control-C, or you can right-click to copy, Control-V to paste. That creates a second object that was originally on top of the first one. To duplicate, I'm going to change the color first. You're going to do Control-D on the keyboard. That creates one, and you see that it jumped. By default, I have it set to jump 1/4 inch up and over. You can change those settings as you wish. But the key is here, if I hit Control-V to paste, you see my original blue one is here. Duplicates do not copy to the clipboard, but they do have other advantages to them. Another way to duplicate is to simply drag an object, and as you do, right-click once with your mouse, and that will create a duplicate. If you hold down Control, it'll force you to go straight across or straight up and down. You can also drag across itself with the middle bounding box, and then right-click once to create a duplicate. Again, if you hold down Control, it will force it to make the exact same size. So if I weld these two together, it will create a little rose leaf here for me. And now I can click a second time, which will give me rotation handle so I can spin it. But if I change the center of rotation to the center of the circle, now I can click and rotate around the center of that circle. Now I have my rotation degree set to 72 degrees, so if I hold Control, it'll snap to 72 degrees. Now if I hit Control-D again, it'll rotate the next one 72 degrees, and I repeat that process. Now I can simply select them all, combine them together, add an outline around them, get rid of this little white center circle here, and I end up with a perfectly symmetrical wild rose. Now while that is symmetrical, let's say you did not like the shape of this vein and want to put a little curve to it. You don't have to start over. By default, you have 150 undo levels in Memorial Designer, so just hit Control-Z multiple times, or use the drop down to get back to a certain step. If you go too far, you can redo by Control-Shift-Z. I'm going to get back till I have my single petal right here. Now I'm just going to select this node. I'm going to start to bend it and just shape each part here to get it just how I want it. And now I'm just going to repeat the steps I did before. And there we go. You can adjust your undo levels, I think, up to 10,000 or something crazy. Just know that you can try things, play with it, and know that you can always undo it.